from JNV Yamunanagar. Our today topic is voice. Voice is that form of the transitive verb that shows whether the subject of the sentence is the doer of action or has the action done to it. Means voice tells us whether the subject is doing something or he just receiving the action. Look, here we use the verb, the transitive verb. The word transitive verb, we must know what is the meaning of this transitive verb. Let's see what are transitive verbs. The transitive verb is a verb that has direct object to receive the action. For example, the man loved his children. Here the verb love has children as an object. So the verb love is transitive verb because it has children as a receiver of this action. But if we say he goes, see, there is a subject, verb, but there is no object. So the verb that has no direct object is called intransitive verb. In active passive voice, we basically deal with the transitive verb. So now we'll see what are active voice and passive voice. First of all, we'll see what is active voice. When the subject is the doer of action, the verb is in active voice. Means where the subject is active, we'll say it is active voice. But on the other hand, if the subject is just the receiver of action, we'll say the verb is in passive voice. Means in passive voice, the subject is passive. So now we'll do what is the sentence structure in active voice. In active voice, first of all, we'll have a subject that is doing the action. Then we'll have a verb or action word. And in last, we have an object that is receiving the action. For example, he cooks food. Here in this sentence, he is a subject who is doing the action. Cooks is a verb and food is object, that is receiver of the action. Now we'll see what is a sentence structure in passive voice. In passive voice, we have subject that is receiving the action, then be form or you can say a helping verb, then past participle of the verb, you can say third form of the verb, then by, and finally object that is doing the action. Here in this passive voice, the subject is receiving the action but object is doing the action. So subject is passive here but the object is active. So this is called a passive voice because subject is passive here. Let's see once again what is a sentence structure in active voice and in passive voice. In active voice, we first of all have a subject, then action word or you can say verb, and in last we have object. But in passive voice, we have object first, means receiver of action, then action word or verb, then we have subject, means the doer of action. Now we have done what is active voice and what is passive voice. and we have done what is the sentence structure in active voice and in passive voice. Now we'll see what are 5 simple steps to change an active voice into passive voice. First step is identify. So, while converting an active voice into passive voice, first of all, we have to identify the subject, verb, and object. Our second step is swap. Means we'll swap subject with the object, or you can say subject will take the position of object and object will take the position of subject. Our third step is to convert. Means we'll change the verb into past participle, or you can say third form of the verb. Then in fourth steps, we'll use helping verb before the main verb. There are different rules to use this helping verb. For example, if we have first form of the verb, then we'll use is, am, are as helping verb. But if we have second form of the verb, then we will use was or were as helping verb. There are more rules that we'll discuss in the later half of our video. Our fifth step is to use by before the subject. We'll use preposition by before the subject. Let's do it once again. There are 5 simple steps to convert an active voice into passive voice. First of all, we have to identify subject, verb, and object. Then we'll swap subject with the object. Then in third step, we'll convert the verb into third form of the verb. In fourth step, we'll use helping verb before the main verb. In fifth or in last step, we'll use by before the subject. Let's take an example. For example, Mayank repaired my car. First of all, we'll identify subject, verb, and object. Our second step is to swap. So, we'll take my car as a subject. Then we'll use helping verb. As second form of the verb is used here, so we'll use was as a helping verb. Then third form of the verb, and that is repaired also. Then preposition by, and last we have doer of action, that is Mayank. So, the sentence in passive voice will be my car was repaired by Mayank. Now there is a question. Why we use this passive voice? Actually, there are 2 main cases to use this passive voice. First case is when we don't know the subject at all. For example, Steve's wallet was stolen. Here we don't know who actually stole Steve's wallet. So we'll use passive voice here. Steve's wallet was stolen. Another example. All the cookies have been eaten. Here we don't know who eat all the cookies. So we'll use passive voice here. Second case is we use passive voice when we want to give more importance to the action rather than the subject who performed the action. For example, solar plant will be built in Gujarat, or the road is being repaired. Here, the repairing of the road is important rather than who is repairing. Now we'll see how to change the active voice into passive voice in different tenses. First of all, if we have simple present tense, means if we have first form of the verb, then while making the passive voice, we have to use a helping verb, and the helping verb will use is, am, are in simple present tense. If there is present continuous tense, then we'll use is, am, are and being, then third form of the verb. If there is present perfect tense, then we'll use has, have, been and third form of the verb. In simple past tense, there will be second form of the verb, and while converting this type of sentence into passive voice, we'll use was, were as helping verb and third form of the verb. In past continuous tense, we usually have was, were and present participle. So while converting these types of sentences into passive voice, we have to use was, were and being and third form of the verb. In past perfect tense, we usually have had plus third form of the verb, and while converting these types of sentences into passive voice, we'll use had, been and third form of the verb. In simple future tense, we'll use will, be and third form of the verb. And finally, in future perfect tense, we'll use will, have, been and third form of the verb. But remember one thing, we don't use these four tenses while converting from active to passive. And these tenses are present perfect continuous tense, past perfect continuous tense, future continuous tense and future perfect continuous tense. Now we'll take some example of sentences in different tenses. If we have simple present tense, then while converting the sentence of simple present tense into passive form, passive voice, we'll use is, am, are as helping verb. For example, if we have he writes a letter, our first step will be identify the subject, verb and object. And here in this sentence, he is subject, writes is our verb and a letter is object. Our second step will be to swap subject with the object. So letter will become object, letter will become subject here, and he will convert into him and will become our object. Then we'll use a helping verb. Helping verb, if because it is the present tense, simple present tense, so we'll use is as a helping verb. And remember one thing, the a letter is a singular here, so we'll use is as a helping verb. Then third form of the verb, that is written, and by, preposition by before the object. Let's take the example of present continuous tense. In present continuous tense, we usually have subject, is and present participle and a cake or object. For example, Javed is making a cake. In this sentence, Javed is subject. Javed is subject, is making a verb, and a cake is our object. Our second step will be to swap subject with the object. So a cake will become the subject and Javed will take the position of object. Then we'll have to use a proper helping verb according to tense. And here we'll use is being as a helping verb. Our next step will be to convert the verb into third form of the verb. So here the verb is making, we'll use the third form of it, that is made. Then add a preposition by before the object. So our sentence will be a cake is being made by Javed. Let's take the example of present perfect tense. In present perfect tense, we have subject and has have plus third form of the verb and object. So while converting these types of sentences into passive voice, we use has or have and been and then third form of the verb. So first of all, we have to identify. Here the subject is I, verb is eaten, and a burger is our object. Then we have to follow our second step, and second step is to swap. So we have to swap subject with the object. So a burger will become subject and I will convert into me and become the object. Then we'll have to use a proper helping verb, and because there is a present perfect tense, so we'll use has been as a helping verb and then third form of the verb that is given here, eaten, and finally preposition by before the object. So sentence will be a burger has been eaten by me. Our next tense is simple past tense. In simple past tense, we usually have second form of the verb, and sentence structure is subject and second form of the verb and object. So while converting these types of sentences into passive voice, we have to use was or were as a helping verb and then third form of the verb. So first of all, we have to identify the subject, verb and object, and here he is subject, bought is our object, bought is our verb, and a car is object. Then we have to swap subject with the object. A car will become our subject here and he will change into him and become the object. Then we'll use a helping verb according to tense, and was is our helping verb here. Then third form of the verb bought, and finally a preposition by before the object. So the sentence will be a car was bought by him. Let's see the example of past continuous tense. In past continuous tense, we usually have subject, was, were plus present participle and object. So while converting these types of sentences into passive voice, we have to use was and being and third form of the verb. So first of all, we have to identify the subject, verb and object in the sentence. The sentence is Sarah was singing a song. Here Sarah is subject, singing is verb, and a song is our object. So then we'll swap subject with the object. A song will become our subject and Sarah will take the position of object. Then we'll use a helping verb there, that is was being. Because a song is singular, so we'll use was being. If there is a plural subject, then we'll use were being. So a song was being. Then third form of the verb, that is sung, and finally a preposition by before the object. Let's see the example of present perfect tense. In present perfect tense, in past perfect tense, we usually have had plus third form of the verb. For example, Jay had finished homework. Here in this sentence, Jay is our subject, finished is our verb, and homework is object. So our second step will be to swap subject with the object. So homework will become our subject and J will become the object. Then we'll have to use a proper helping verb, that is had been, then third form of the verb, that is finished, and finally by before the object. So the sentence will be homework had been finished by J. Let's take the example of simple future tense. In simple future tense, we usually have subject and will, shall plus first form of the verb and object. So while converting these types of sentences into passive voice, first of all, we have to identify the subject and verb and object. Here she is subject, accept is our verb, and the offer is object. So we'll swap the subject with the object and the offer will become subject. And then will be as a helping verb, third form of the verb accept, accepted, and then by preposition before the object her. Now see the sentence in future perfect tense. In future perfect tense, we have subject will have plus third form of the verb and object. So our first step will be to identify subject, verb and object, then swap subject with the object. So the battery will become subject and I will change into me and become the object here. Then we'll use will have and been as a helping verb, then third form of the verb charged, and finally preposition by before the object. So the sentence will be the battery will have been charged by me. I hope now you understand how to change the sentences of active voice into passive voice in different tenses. If we have simple present tense, then we'll use is MR as a helping verb and third form of the verb. In present continuous tense, we'll use is MR, being and third form of the verb. In present perfect tense, we'll use has, have, been and third form of the verb. In simple past tense, we'll use was, were as helping verb and third form of the verb. In past continuous tense, there will be was, were and being, then third form of the verb. In past perfect tense, we'll use had, been and written, means third form of the verb. In simple future tense, we'll use will, be and third form of the verb. In future perfect tense, we'll use will, have, been and third form of the verb. Notice one thing, that in future tense, we usually use been. May it be present perfect tense, may it be future perfect tense or past perfect tense, we'll use been. And in continuous tense, we use being with the helping verb. For example, in present continuous tense, we use is MR being. In past continuous tense, we use was, were, being.